Here we are, folks. As a lot of you know, back when scouting first started, girls wanted to be scouts too. And so Baden Powell figured out a way, and he had his sister uh, do what they called the Girl Guides. And then he had a friend named Juliet Gordon Lowe, an American lady from the South, from Savannah, Georgia, who started the Girl Scouts of America. This is an old 1950 Girl Scout handbook here. And I've always thought Girl Scouts was just girls need scouting just like boys do. And tonight we've got an experienced Girl Scout leader with us, Michelle Bard, who's a friend of mine from the Burns Club of Atlanta. I think you'll enjoy this, and I hope that it'll get you as enthusiastic about helping out with scouting, or if you're a girl, an older girl, and you want to get back into the heart of scouting, then this will maybe be a helpful thing for you to participate in tonight. Bye.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Aids to Scouting.
Tonight we have Michelle Bard, who's a friend of mine, and I know her through the Burns Club of Atlanta, and we're very glad to have her on. All of her qualifications will come out as we talk, but I want you to know that she's really into historic preservation, and we'll talk about that some, and that's one of her many life skills. And the other one is that she's been very active in Girl Scouts, the Girl Scouts of America, for a long time. And so we're going to talk about that. In preparation, I even got out my Girl Scout handbook.
Oh, wow.
I forget what year this is. So let me see. Michelle, I want you to first just tell us a little bit about your background, knowing we only have an hour. And
Haha.
All right.
Sure. Well, my background, as you mentioned, is in historic preservation, and I've always been interested in history. So history and art history are my backgrounds. I worked in a few museums, Victoria and Albert in London, Atlanta History Center in Atlanta, and now I am a historian for the state of Georgia.
And as a historian, what is your job function there?
All right, that's pretty technical, but there's the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. And one of the many things that did was set up state historic preservation offices in every single state. And so that's why we have one in Georgia. And my specific function is to examine projects that have federal agency involvement to see if those projects will have an effect on historic resources where they're going to take place.
Well, that brings up something that I'll go ahead and talk about, which is I said that I know Michelle through the Burns Club of Atlanta, our clubhouse, we built it in 1911, and it is an exact replica of Robert Burns' birthplace in Alloway, Scotland. And Michelle has done a tremendous job. How would you call it? Detailing every measurement of the place.
Yeah, I documented it for what's called the Historic American Building Survey, or HABS for short. So I took measurements of the whole cottage. I had my hand all over every single stone. And then I took all those measurements and I put it into architectural software, and I made architectural drawings, and I put them all together in a nice presentation format. And it's now in the Library of Congress for the Burns Cottage of Atlanta, and it can be seen on the internet as well.
Yes, and also for that matter, you can look at Wikipedia. Even has, if you look up the Robert Burns Club of Atlanta or the Burns Cottage, you'll find pictures of it. And I hope all of you will take advantage of this opportunity. And if you're ever in Atlanta, you might want to just swing by and just see the thing. It's about 2 miles east of Zoo, Atlanta. All right, Michelle, where did you grow up? I think you grew up in Atlanta, did you?
Yeah, I'm a native of Atlanta. And I've always gone to school in the city and university twice at Georgia State. And
not because you flunked out, right?
No, graduate and undergraduate degrees, but
Yes.
the only time I've ever lived away from the city is when I had an internship in London many years ago. So I'm an
Oh, that couldn't have
Atlanta
been so
girl.
many years ago since you're so young. Tell me,
Ah,
tell me, what part of Atlanta did you grow up in?
the South Side, and then I've always worked in Buckhead. You know, the
Yes.
history center or the State Historic Preservation offices in Buckhead as well. I
You
will say
know,
I also had internships at the Georgia Trust, which is in Midtown, and the City of Atlanta, which is in downtown. So I've been all over.
my wife and I have been long been members of the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation, and
Hmm.
I was on the Downtown Development Authority in Zebulon, and so
Oh, yeah.
that was one of those issues where I want children to be able to go to a little town and see what a real town, what I call a real town, looks like.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like I went to the University of Virginia, so I got real spoiled by seeing Monticello
Right,
and the part of the University of Virginia that was designed by Thomas Jefferson,
right.
and of course Williamsburg. Oh, the world should see Williamsburg, and for that matter, some of my friends, my Swedish friends, I visited in northern Sweden in a little town that's on the world is a World Heritage Site
Okay.
because it has this like a 500-600-year-old church in the middle of the town and all these little cottages around it. It's just great. But anyway, let's move on now. You were a Girl Scout when you were young, weren't you?
Yes, I was. I was a Girl Scout in elementary school and starting in junior high, middle school, and then I stepped out of it, and then I got back in as an adult when my eldest child turned 5, and I started a Girl Scout troop for her and her friends.
Well, tell me, why don't I don't know if you, for getting ready for this, if you've done a little, can give us a little historic review of the Girl Scouts of America. You know, of course,
Sure.
Baden Powell and his sister, and then later his wife, worked on the Girl Guides program. It's
Hmm.
because so many girls in 1909, 1910 wanted to be scouts.
Right.
And so why not?
Yeah, that's
Very
exactly
few
right.
reasons. Yes, go ahead.
Sure. Well, it's founded by Juliet Gordon Low,
Yes.
famously, and a good Scottish girl. And she was from Savannah, and you can go visit her birthplace. It's owned by the Girl Scouts of America, and it's in Savannah. It's a house museum, great place to go visit, and it's rather a pilgrimage site for Girl Scout troops to go to visit. But she married Andrew Lowe, and they spent quite a bit of time in England, where they met Baden Powell and became quite good friends. And so she was there when he founded the Boy Scouts. And she was back in Savannah in 1912. And she decided that she was going to found a scouting movement just for girls. Because Baden Powell's movement was, as you mentioned, girls' guides as well. So boys and girls were encompassed in the movement. And Juliet Gordon Low wanted to found a movement just for girls, and they still keep that to this day. I know there's been lots of groups with lots of integration, but the Girl Scouts are very adamant they will never integrate, because they still believe, and I think this is fantastic, that why not let the girls still have their own space, and especially a safe space. So that
Yes.
is how that got founded. And so Baden Powell and she had a tiny bit of a falling out. He was none too pleased that she started this separate movement.
I understand, and that's always been kind of an issue, but not a terrible issue. The of course the when Scouting America, it's turned from BSA, Boy Scouts of America, to Scouting America. That apparently offended groups that thought, oh, we can't have girls coming here, so a couple of them split off. One of them is like the North America Trail Association or something
Mhm.
like that. And then that's, I think that's the Mormon church. But on this podcast, we're going to get to that because what our podcast is about is scouting. And
Mhm.
so whether it's girls, whether it's called something else, Royal Rangers or that or anything, that's what we want is for kids to be out and camping and learning all the skills that
Yes.
they don't learn in schools.
Mhm.
Talk about the Girl Scouts view on those and how they work toward that kind of expanding what girls get out of life.
Absolutely. So the program has 4 pillars, and it doesn't matter what age the girl is within scouting. It's always going to follow 4 pillars. So they want girls to experience the outdoors. They want them outdoors. And so encouraging camping is a huge part of Scouts. And they have Girl Scout camps all over the country. And they even have Girl Scout camps worldwide. So that's very, very cool. So that's one of the pillars. Building skills. So I think that's what a lot of people think of when they might see a 7-year-old second grader brownie scout, and maybe she's going to earn a baking badge or taking care of a pet badge. A lot of people think about that when they think about Girl Scouts. But there's also knife safety. There's also going hot air ballooning. There's also learning hardcore primitive camping. I mean, the girls really do. I don't think it's really known enough. They get down in the dirt and they have all the opportunities. They can learn coding, they can learn archery, they can shoot rifles, they can learn all these amazing things. They get to do a lot, and there's programming for all of it, and you earn badges. So they have skill building badges. And the other pillar is entrepreneurship, and that's when you think about the cookies, so which starts every year. January 1st, cookie sales start. So that's a lot of fun. It's always very exciting. You think, well, the Christmas season is passing, but no, cookies are there. It's still very fun and sugary. But so the Girl Scouts are famous for the cookies, and that's their bread and butter. I think the camps particularly, I think at least half of their budget nationwide comes from those cookies. So, but they're building skills, and they're not just out there in front of a store or going door to door selling it. They actually have skill building badges for that, entrepreneur badges that they, do these steps because you are learning a business, you are setting a goal, you are budgeting, you are going out and expending the shoe leather to earn your badge and get the rewards from it. So, and then what we have is also sort of a community service pillar. Get out there and help your community. And of course, you can have infinite creative ways to do that, but it's great when you have a troop that really tries to put their toe in all 4 pillars. So that's the basis. And it doesn't matter what age they are, whether they're not in kindergarten or through 12th grade, the Girl Scout program has those 4 pillars the whole way through.
Well, my observations, I don't see the girls getting out and doing the wilderness camping and the bitter weather type camping that I think it's, of course, maybe that's true of vast segments of our population don't get out in bad weather. I think bad weather is where you learn, not good weather. and
Yeah.
and so I want, I want children, boys and girls, to get out there and experience and learn how to get by when the weather's bad, and how to protect themselves from things like poison ivy and ticks
Mhm.
and fleas and everything else, mosquitoes and you name it, all the snakes, and so that you don't get that from just looking at books or movies.
No, not at all. No. And the opportunities to do exactly what you're saying are there. What I will say is I'm going to make the percentage up, but I would say 90% of Girl Scout camping is done at Girl Scout camps.
Yes.
And those camps are only open to Girl Scouts. So the only other time you sort of can step foot on one without being a Girl Scout is they'll have Scout family weekends. And so then maybe, the brother and the sister that maybe aren't, well, certainly the brother's not in the program, and the mom and dad, they can all come and be together. But other than that, those camps are only open to those girls. So that's why you won't see them there doing that. But one of the other things about Girl Scouts is it's entirely girl led. And I had 2 troops. I still have 1, but I always tell the parents that the leader's job is to take what the girls want to do after you present them with the program at each level. These are all the badges. Here's the community service. Of course, we're going to sell cookies, etc. And then they decide in that calendar year, let's say, what they want to do. And then it's the leader's job to make it happen. So, and you might have one or two girls that want to do the primitive camping, and then you might have a couple of girls that want to go off and do axe throwing, which is great. But it's all girl led. They make the choice.
Well, one of the things that aids to scouting is trying to bolster and encourage is adult involvement. And
Mm-hmm,
because it's we I want adults that are already involved to say, yeah, these people are right, and I am doing a wonderful thing for my child and for other children. And then people who are not quite involved, or they've got a girl who's 6 years old and they're looking around, and I want them to understand how it's not easy necessarily, but it's it's what a way to raise your daughter is to
mm-hmm,
be with her and to be
mm-hmm,
out there with her and have her camp and be with her when she learns all these skills. You mentioned cooking. I
mm-hmm,
tell scouts, I I say, you to get cooking merit badge, you're supposed to do it over a fire. And I say,
mm-hmm.
but if you can't cook at home, don't expect to be able to cook over a fire. So you almost need to learn how to do those things at home first, because a fire's a whole another issue about heat control and
Mm-hmm.
conditions and all that. So speak to adult leadership and how the importance of that is as you see it as a Girl Scout leader.
It's very interesting. So the way you were speaking about getting adults involved very heavily. So that's one of the ways in which Scouting America and Girl Scouts does have a big separation. Now, I don't have a son, and I've never been involved with a scout pack. And I do understand somewhat that the structure is different because the two organizations, their structure operation is very different. And one of those ways is with adult volunteers. My understanding is that with Scouting America, they are all about building up that youth and get as many of the family in there and get them all involved and be supportive of every activity. That's my impression. Girl Scouts is, yeah, we want the parent volunteers, and there's a lot of different roles and ways to volunteer. But by and large, especially let's say at a meeting, they want you to leave the parent at the door, because what we're doing in Girl Scouts is we're raising independent women.
Yeah,
And
that's the way all scouting should be.
mhm,
And the older they get, the more you ought to be leaving them alone. That's
mhm,
and let the children lead. I've seen way too much what I call car camping, where the
mm,
cars all drive up, they put out a bunch of wall tents, they have gas fired cooking stuff, and the parents do the cooking. Now, that's that's not teaching a child very much, other
yeah.
than my dad can cook pretty well, or my mama makes good pancakes in the morning, but
But
that ain't
hopefully
over a
you're
fire.
getting them interested, and hopefully over time you will let them
Yes.
experiment. And that is very much about the individual leaders and the adults that are volunteering,
Yes.
and I think that's true of any of our volunteer organizations. The
Mhm.
program is out there for them to use, and how they execute that program can be different.
Yes.
Absolutely. I wanted to, for just a moment, I wanted to speak on the pack and the troop level and the Scouting America program. At the Cub level, which is the kids that are from 5 to 10 years old, or 5 to 10 and a half. That's most certainly, you'll see a lot of the car camping. You'll see a lot of that very easygoing. Parents do a lot of the things and are heavily involved, just like you said. But when you cross over to the 11 to 17-year-olds, that's where it becomes, the adults are mostly hands off. They have their committee meetings and such, but in a general sense, the adults during the meetings, during the campouts, things like that, that's where we try to push the youth led part of it, is certainly from the 11 to 17-year-olds. And then we also have another program called Venture Crew and Explorer Scouts. You may have heard of that, because there's a lot of crossover, at least in my area and when I was growing up. That would be the 14 to 20-year-olds, up to 21. When you're 21, you're out. But the Explorer posts are very career oriented, so you'll typically find them at fire stations, police stations, and things like that, where they're quite literally training to do just that when they cross over, or get out of school. That's what they're wanting to do, is in those Explorer posts. Venture Crew is kind of like a co-ed older troop. sort of thing, where they do high adventure stuff. They more are doing like, whitewater rafting, doing the super high crazy
Skydiving.
climbing stuff. Oh yeah, just the crazy stuff. I would like to add hot air ballooning to that, but we haven't done any of that. I never got to do it. So
It's
I'm a little
interesting
jealous.
all the things you can do. It's just whether or not you get the opportunity. We have this great chart that shows everything that you're approved to do. You can go sailing and hot air ballooning, and you can go what's it called? When you're going caving and the like. And there's so many
Olympic.
things that I never would even have thought of, except for, oh wow, there's this wonderful chart that says, sure, you can do this and this and this. That's great.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's interesting we're talking about the levels, and that's another different thing with Girl Scouts. All scouting opportunities are different, but the way it is with Girl Scouts is they have the daisies, which are kindergarten and first grade, and then they have the brownies, that is your second and your third graders. And in fourth grade, you have the juniors. All of middle school are cadets. Ninth and 10th graders are seniors, which is a little confusing, because then when you're in 11th and 12th grade, you're called ambassadors. And after that, you graduate to being an adult scout. So my eldest is now an adult scout, as am I. And another thing about the Girl Scout program, which I think is really lovely, is that you don't earn that spot. You don't earn the spot to be the junior. You don't earn the spot to be a cadet. You are that spot by nature of your grade level. And so you don't have to sort of climb an enforced ladder, which is nothing wrong with that. But this is how Girl Scouts is also different.
Yeah.
And then the aspect is you can hop in and out as much as you want, which can be really good depending on the girl and her time of life. What if she was a scout during third, fourth, and fifth grade, and maybe she moved away to someplace else that was inaccessible, or maybe she got involved with something else in middle school, but when she came back to high school, she wanted to have a couple of years there, and she can jump back in. And with some organizations, you have to have worked your way through the whole thing in order to keep your spot, and you don't have to do that here. I have had scouts come in at every grade level, including senior year. Like the girls wanted to be a scout their senior year so they could earn their gold award for college applications and then the like. But you can get to be a scout. You can hop right in at any of those grade levels, and you can get the full experience.
Well, in Cub Scouts, in the Cub Scout program, the 5 to 10 and a half year olds, that is gone by grade level as well. There's activities that they can earn within that grade level, like activity pins, similar to the merit badge type thing when you get to the troop level. But then once you get to the 10 and a half or 11-year-olds to 17-year-olds, it is kind of like that ladder. It's not necessarily enforced. It's encouraged. Like nobody has to get Eagle Scout. You don't have to. And in fact, on just about every one of our podcast programs so far, when we get into talking about that rank situation, the Eagle Scout, a lot of people that are outside of the program, they look at that and they're like, oh, so you have to earn your Eagle Scout? You don't. In fact, the important skills like the leadership skills, the knife skills, the cooking skills, the first aid stuff, all of those really important things, the things that we want the young people to do, that we really want to enforce but just encourage, is up through the first class. You have the scout rank, tenderfoot, second class, and first class, and you have all that time from the time that you join the troop at whatever age that you choose to join a troop. You have that time to earn those. Some of those ranks have have requirements in them that take 3 months to do. Some of them take 6 months to do. Like, for instance, beyond the first class, or no, let's go back. In the tenderfoot rank, they have a personal fitness goal that they have to reach, where for 30 days in a row, or let's say, I think, 30 days, let's say 30 days, they have to do what they can, how many push-ups, how many sit-ups, and they got to run or walk a mile, and how long it takes them to do that. And over 30 days, they have to practice and do that stuff again. And at the end of the 30 days, they have to tally a new chart with it and see how they improved and why they improved and what they learned from that kind of thing. Then you go beyond those basic skills, the personal fitness type stuff. And once you've surpassed the first class, you get to Star Scout, Life Scout, and then finally the Eagle Scout rank. Most of the requirements that have to do with those last three are you have to earn this specific merit badge, like citizenship in the world, citizenship in the nation. You pick one like swimming or cycling or athleticism. There's several different merit badges, but you get two or three of them, and then you get two or three elective ones, and then you have to serve in a leadership role, like patrol leader or assistant senior patrol leader or senior patrol leader or instructor. And those are a lot of those are elected positions, but some of them are elective positions, such as instructor. Like if you're really good at tying knots and you want to teach all the knot tying classes, you can do that. You get to be the instructor in the troop, one of the instructors in the troop, and then you can help younger scouts with their rank stuff that they want to do. But
Well, I was going to say that one of the things that I want to make sure that we cover in
yes,
this time we're together is the repetition of what we might call morals. And so I got out this
yes,
book here and I looked, and it was a 1950 edition.
Very
Okay.
neat.
And so I said, I'm going to get out the Girl Scout oath and read it, or make sure that we cover that. And somebody has removed it from this particular book. They probably have it framed in a piece of glass
in the shirt
someplace.
pocket.
Yeah, and so Michelle, do you happen to remember the Girl Scout oath? I'd like for you to repeat it if you can.
Sure. So, on my honor, I will try to serve God and my country, to help people at all times, and to live by the Girl Scout law.
Can
And
you tell us the
how
Girl
about
Scout law?
the points of the Girl Scout law? Can you do those?
Yeah. So give me 1 second. I will have to read that one. That's a bit longer. So
Yes, of course.
yeah, no, that's fine. Let me see. Don't want to mess that one up.
No, what it is. You just look so
There we go.
attractive with those glasses on. That's
Ah,
what you wanted, excuse to put them on.
that's right. I will do my best to be honest and fair, friendly and helpful, considerate and caring, courageous and strong, and responsible for what I say and do, and to respect myself and others, respect authority, use resources wisely, make the world a better place, and be a sister to every Girl Scout.
Oh, that's wonderful. That tracks
Mhm.
so much just what all Scout law is. And
That's
Mhm.
may
one
I?
thing. Yeah, go ahead,
I was
Elliot.
going to say, may I recite the Scouting America oath and law for you? as well?
Well, I think we all know that one, but go ahead and
Well, I
do
don't
it
know if
again.
Michelle does. Do
I
you?
don't, yeah.
Oh,
Good
go
for you.
ahead then, by
So,
all means.
well, just because they're so similar, and I think the values and ideas line up. I mean, almost exactly. I'd say so. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And that's the Scout oath. And then we got the law, which is 12 points, and they just say them in order after they say a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. That's so. I mean, I think they both hit the nail on the head. Is what we'd like for youth all around the world to
Yeah.
subscribe to.
All that kind of reminds me of religious practices. When one goes to a church or synagogue or whatever, one sings songs and repeats the concept beliefs there. And I can remember I was raised a Presbyterian, and they would bring a child up to be christened, and then they would say something to the parents about do you promise to raise this child, and blah blah blah, and then they would turn to the congregation and say, uh, do you promise to help and guide this child until such time as they essentially till they grow up and they accept our religion? And if so, please stand. And so the whole congregation stood. And so that whole it instilled in all people there a general sense that you had a duty not just to your own children, but to all children. because
Hmm.
they said these children and all other children until such time as they confess their faith or whatever it might have been. So, and I think that scouts, they that week after week that gets into them because they repeat that.
Hmm.
And I think girls, and you can speak to this because this is a podcast and we don't want to go too far off the rails, but girls have an added responsibility of personal watching out for their own personal safety and their own
Hmm.
personal welfare and their own personal morals so that they can become good citizens and not uh, go down tracks that would get them hurt or killed or whatever. And
Hmm.
so, if you could speak to that, because I think that's one of the elephants in the room about scouting, whether it's
Mm.
Girl Scouts or Scouting America or one of these other groups,
Life.
and that reason for trail life, yeah, it's that segregation has a kind of a safety reason. Like for
Hmm.
example,
Yeah.
yeah, in scouts, we in scouts these days, they because of all kinds of experience, they have what is called too deep leadership, which is an adult's never supposed to be alone with a kid all by
Hmm.
himself. And they also have kind of a background check system.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they also have adults these days have to take, what is it called?
It's
Safety.
called safeguarding youth training right now.
Yes. And they have to go through a thing to understand what. So would you talk to that for a little bit, Michelle, if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah, no. I think, well, part of that goes back to the Girl Scouts wanting to raise strong, independent women and
Yes.
making sure they're safe. And one of the reasons also that they will never integrate boys into the organization. Now, I say boys because men, such as yourself, can be Girl Scouts. They can be
Girl
adult
Scout
Scouts.
leaders.
Right. Well, and to be a volunteer in the
Yes. Yeah.
organization, you have to be a member. So you are an adult member. They even have a whole campaign for dads, man enough to be a Girl Scout. And it's great. There's t-shirts, there's hats, there's everything. Because also sometimes, think about the way households are these days. Maybe it is just a dad at the home. And that's the parent that can and is willing to volunteer. So we have men Girl Scout leaders, and they are Girl Scouts. But to the camping point, how only Girl Scouts go to Girl Scout camp. So if you do have the men leaders, men dads, say, you've got, you have a camping volunteer that's your camping coordinator, and they come on every camping trip, or maybe it's the head leader, and he's a man. Well, they have to check in with the ranger and at the campsite, and also they'll sleep segregated
Of
as well.
course. Yes.
From the girls. So there's all sorts of, protocol, and every person that volunteers physically with the girls must go through a background check. And I say physically because one of the volunteer positions might be troop treasurer, and maybe they do that on their computer at home and they don't have any contact with the girls. Well, I'm not going to make them take a background check because it's not necessary. But if you are volunteering at that cookie table out in front of that grocery store, you are in physical contact with those girls. It's not just about troop leaders, right? Physical contact, physical presence, you are going to have a background check. And I've had to turn parents away because perhaps they thought, oh, I'll help this afternoon. I'm like, no, we have to follow this protocol. You need to go, you need to sign up, you need to be a member, and that background check is going to take 3 to 5 days, and then I can get you at the next cookie booth, and I would appreciate your help. So we have to be, it's about those rules are in place, and some things take time, but it's those things that are worth it, and that's how we concentrate on the girls' safety.
Well, I think that when you talked about one of the goals, of course, the goal in all scouting is to raise strong, independent people. And strong and independent people are much less likely to become victims
Mhm.
of all kinds of things, all kinds of the blandishments of modern society. The just we don't I guess we don't need to name every one of them like we're on Joe Rogan or something, but a strong independent woman who knows how to shoot arrows and guns is more likely than maybe some girl who's never been exposed to any of that stuff, and
Mhm.
who doesn't think in terms of protecting herself and her
Mhm.
household from evil. And evil is out there,
Mhm.
and that's just all there is to it. We can kid ourselves about it, but it's out there.
Yeah, I remember with my troops throughout their courses and Girl Scouts, young through graduating, we've done various things over the years. At different ages, taking safety class when they were very, very young, on how to be safe and how to be safe from strangers. Taking internet safety pledges, because it's been around for a long time. The internet is an unsafe, or can be a very unsafe place. So educating them at each level about internet safety is something, and I think even more these days, it's very important. And then, of course, you're teaching them the skills, as you say, rifle skills, for instance, the opportunity to do that. You're learning gun safety. You're learning, particularly, this is an instrument, and it's how you use it and how you respect it that really matters. And so when you afford them these opportunities, that just really, it builds on, is laying bricks. It builds on itself.
Tell me about Girl Scout uniforms these days.
Mm.
I think the Boy Scouts started off with a looking a bit too military, and they
Mm.
kind of got away from that. But then I think they got to a point. This is just my opinion. In the early '70s, where they started putting way too much color. Like no scout can sneak through the woods with all that red and yellow
Sure.
stuff showing. And I've seen some pictures of early Girl Scouts where
Mhm.
they were wearing dresses that came all the way down to the
Right,
ground.
and they were
And
green, and if you go to
yep,
the Girl Scouts of Greater Atlanta
yep.
headquarters, they'll
Hmm.
have a display of early uniforms. In fact, the Atlanta History Center even had an exhibit in the past year, and the girls used to have to make their uniforms, as well, and so that was quite fascinating to learn. But they are color coded these days, and have been for quite a long time. I would say since at least the early 80s. I'm not quite sure, into the 70s. But it's
Yeah.
funny you mention it, because I actually did pull out some things. Uh,
Sure.
Wonderful.
so this is an example of a daisy vest, and some of the things have been picked off as they've moved up to other vests, but daisies are blue. And so they have a smock or a vest. And just to give you an idea, the construction of the vest, we always have our flag. This is our council identifier, because yes, it's the Girl Scouts of America, but all across the country, we are separated into what are called councils. And so in the Atlanta area, or the entire northern part of the state, really, we're the Greater Atlanta Council. And so that's our council badge, our troop number, and then we'll put our community service pieces and skill building badges. This is the daisy level. And then we call fun patches go on the back. So that's a lot of fun. So this would be a brownie. This is a daisy. That's your kindergarten and your first grader. And then we got the brownie uniform. I think brownies are probably the most famous level of Girl Scouts. And they also have, I think, the most elaborate uniform options. You can get the vest, and you can get the skirt, and you can have a blue shirt underneath with a nice little neck piece. And you can have the brown tights and the nice little hat. So you'll have that. And here are the community service journey badges, is what these are called. And these are the skill building badges. And like a military uniform, since you mentioned that, everything has a specific spot. So very adamant. This has to go here. This has to go here. I would do uniform checks sometimes when my girls were younger, and no, this has to come off here and it has to go over here. There's a diagram. Everything has an exact spot, except for the back. You can just put the fun package when you run out of room. And then from middle school through high school, it's all the khaki, and the things change. The badges change. The design of the badges changes with every level. So that's an identifier. But again, fun patches are always on the back, and it's a fun thing, and you can put the things on the back anywhere you want. This pen right here is an interesting pen. We were mentioning Gold Award before and Eagle Scout. So the awards that you can earn that are special in Girl Scouts, the Gold Award is one of them. It's the one that's akin to the Eagle Scout Award. That is for the high schooler. In middle school, you can earn the Silver Award. And when you are in 4th and 5th grade, as a junior, you can earn the Bronze Award. And you can only earn them at those grade levels. And how you are allowed to earn them varies too. When you are in 4th and 5th grade, you can do the whole troop together, can organize the activity and follow the steps and earn the Bronze Award all together. In middle school, you can work with a team. If you want, my eldest worked with 2 others, and they executed their project and earned their Silver Award. As a Gold Award, it is singular only. It has to be independent, and the project is rather like writing a doctoral thesis. You have to propose the project to a committee, and the committee, I've seen it kick back projects 2 or 3 times. And you go back to the drawing board. We need a new project. So it's sort of like heavily coordinated, and the Gold Award has to be done entirely. The girl has to do it entirely by herself. She has a coach to talk to and to bounce ideas off and to keep her on track and with advice, but it's entirely independent. And each of these awards comes with an hour requirement as well. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I noticed my granddaughters. I've got 3 granddaughters, and I've noticed that even a 6-year-old, and boys are maybe similar, but not nearly the same. But the little girls have a strong sense of style. They want to. I don't know what it's like. Play dress up, perfumes, or they seem so feminine, and even at 5 and 6 years old. And so I'm wondering if y'all have a problem ever getting the girls to wear their stuff when they
No,
dress with just a vest. They don't have that problem because they're just wearing the vest to meetings or whatever. Right.
Right. Well, in activities. And so if you're going to have a girl wear a uniform,
Yep.
like for instance, when we march in a parade, it's really quite simple. They wear their vest, a white shirt, and khakis. That's the Girl Scout uniform.
Uh-huh.
The brownie uniform is the only other one that's different.
Yep.
That's the one that I mentioned with the skirt. But you don't have to have all of that. You don't even have to have the vest. It's actually not required. But the only place you are allowed to put the official pins and badges and awards are on a vest. So I always tell the parents, you need the vest so that you can put all of your girls' work on that vest. So it's quite interesting. But I will tell you an interesting story about making the girls wear the uniform. We always did that at meetings, for one thing. It's making someone wear a uniform really puts them at attention a bit, and they're more invested. And that's true in any situation in life, I think. But
yes.
The girls are allowed to travel at varying ages. When they're in elementary school, they can travel kind of in the Southeast. So a lot of girls, especially in Georgia, will take a trip to Savannah. And so both of my troops did. When they get to middle school, they're allowed to be within the continental United States. So my eldest troop took a week-long trip to New York City. And when you are in high school, you are allowed to go around the country. Now, these travel trips have to be approved, and there's extra training for the leaders or the chaperone adults to take so that everyone's safe and we're following all the rules. But it's really, really cool that you get to do that. And I took my one troop to New York City, as I said, and there were a couple of situations where, yes, we want to go around New York and we want to be comfortable, but there's 3 situations where you are going to wear that vest. And one of them is when we were visiting Wall Street, and we were outside Federal Hall, took a great picture of them. I wanted them to look great. Another instance was when we went to the memorial for 9/11, the towers. And then another instance was they wanted to go visit a morning show, as so many people do. And so they picked Good Morning America. And I said, you're wearing those vests. So we get up very early in the morning, go in, we're right outside, with our warm coffees. And I remember my co-leader wanted us to go stand in the window behind the desks where the anchor sits. So maybe if the camera's pointing out, you might get on TV. And I said, no, we are not doing that. We are standing in front of the entrance doors, because sometimes people come out to talk to the crowd and they're going to come out those doors. So I had this wonderful grouping of 7th grade Girl Scouts wearing their wonderful vests full of all the bling that you just saw. And producers saw them. They came out. Oh, who are you? You're Girl Scouts. Oh, are you from around here? No, no, no. We're from Atlanta. You're from Atlanta. You've come a long way. You have to come to see the headquarters. Well, how did you get here? We sold a lot of cookies to get here. And saw them walk back inside, and those doors and the walls are glass. So you can see the producer talking to the cameraman or things like this. Ooh, look at them out there. So what happens is the producer comes back out, says, we're going to let you guys come inside and finish watching the show from inside the studio. And that was a real big treat. So then they take us around the corner of the building, and we go into like a side stage door. We're going through the back bowels, and then we come out and we're on the main floor, and the Good Morning America broadcast is going on live. Michael Strahan is there, and George Stephanopoulos. And so we just have to be quiet and turn off our phones. And we just got to watch it live, the finishing of the first hour. And then the first hour finishes, and the 3 hosts run upstairs to do their second hour. Then they let us over the whole studio. We walked all around. They said we could touch anything. So we got pictures of us behind the anchor desk, and Michael Strahan's cup was still there. I could have had a sip. And it was so wonderful. But these girls looked impressive. They looked impressive standing outside that studio. And those producers were so nice to let them come in. I made all those girls write a thank you note.
That's great.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of almost typical all around the world how people, I know that you get 30 kids together, boys or girls, and usually boys, and there's going to be mischief and there's going to be things that happen. But by and large, people will respect and trust scouts. I remember when I was a kid that, people would let you camp on some land they were holding for investment or something like that. They would trust you to get out and do a nice job and not mess up the place and leave it clean when you left. And y'all were there at that studio. And so it's not like they have a mob of girls that don't have a central feeling of control and responsibility.
It's kind of like what you said earlier. Putting on a uniform does kind of put yourself in check, but it also puts in check the way other people view you, or the group of several people wearing a uniform. And that's true with Girl Scouts, the Scouting America, being an ROTC, or even being in like the Future Farmers of America, and everyone's got that blue jacket on. Any type of, it looks pretty snazzy, it looks good, and it feels good, and it feels good, and it's good to identify with a group like that as well. And Scouts, especially Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, trail life, I'm sure I haven't had any personal interactions with anybody in trail life, but they all wear a uniform, and people trust Scouts. That is true. We're looked at differently, especially all decked out in our neckerchiefs or vests, or it just looks nice.
It's quite interesting, especially thinking back to the uniforms and the old uniforms. I'm reminded of the work that Girl Scouts actually put into helping out the war efforts for World War I and II. There's a huge history about that. It's really quite interesting to read. You're talking about helping people who, someone's overseas fighting, but they need help at home still. So girls going into help, teaching people some skills such as cooking and cleaning that may have needed some help or some guidance, and even with caretaking someone that was ill. They did so much work, and it's quite an interesting story how it was been documented. And one of the things I love, just to recognize the effort and to wait for the centenary of the Girl Scout movement, President Obama gave Juliet Gordon-Low posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2012. And so it's hanging on the wall in the Juliet Gordon-Low birthplace in Savannah.
Now, I remember H.L. Mencken, a writer around the turn of the century. But he was saying that he thought nursing was a very difficult um, profession. And
Mhm.
so, of course, we know that nursing has a higher percentage of women in it. And I'm wondering if scouting prepares, it probably helps a lot of girls understand the responsibilities that lead into things like nursing. And
Mhm.
and of course, motherhood is an extremely important um, skill. And I'm wondering, do the Girl Scouts have a kind of motherhood specific badge or thing that part of those skills things?
Not that I recall, and badges do change over time
Mhm.
as trends move along, but something specifically associated with perhaps mothering, no, not that I recall. Now there are um, skill building badges for first aid, medical care through the
Yep.
different levels. And there's different ways to explore that, but also the community service and caretaking for exploring, how to help in your community and giving level of care. But I wouldn't even say that there's great in-depth exploration even further in sort of a medical way beyond the different levels of first aid at all the program levels. But there is the option also to create your own badge. So if someone was, had the incentive that they wanted to branch out, could
Tell
create
me
something.
more about that, please.
Well, every badge is going to have 5 steps. Once you hit the Browning level, that's something that's very predictable, and those steps are going to change, obviously, with the badge. And even if you have similar badges, let's say there's a baking badge, and I'm sure there is, there's different levels of cooking through the
Mhm.
whole of all your 13 years. But the outside of the cooking thing, the common thing they're going to have 5 steps you have to fulfill. And for each of the 5 steps, there's 3 options.
Mhm.
Um, and including, be having creativity. So if you want to create your own badge, you think of the subject matter, and then you would go about, well, how can I break it down into the steps that I need to achieve my optimal goal, and then you would work to your way up those steps to bring your project to fruition.
Okay.
But you just need to document it and pretty much present it to your leader in your troop. And uh, that is, for an independent minded scout, a good option to have.
Well, I looked at my 1950 book, and the first in chapter whatever it says health and safety, and the first badge here is child care. And
Oh,
so I was wondering if y'all still had a, and so help make a collection of safe and inexpensive playthings for babies.
mm,
Find directions for making several such playthings and make one for a baby or for a hospital or society that can use it. And I think that kind of a thing sounds like every scout should have that kind of experience, because it's not just women who are raising babies, that's for sure. And then and what to expect in childhood development. I think um, that's something that a lot of boys aren't taught at all.
We
And
are in the family life merit badge.
oh,
mm.
good. All
Yeah,
right, and it includes babies.
yeah, family life.
Okay,
There's babies in families.
yeah.
That's funny.
Well, that
Well,
is great. Well, what else now? How about uh, I like to think sometimes about the role of grandparents, since I'm now a grandparent,
Mhm.
and how they can they can be like helpful instructors or helpful with merit badges or other
right.
things like that. And some of them have more time than the
Mhm.
working parents have these days. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you have any memories of that sort of stuff or things you'd like to share, thoughts about that, Michelle.
So I think that this brings up volunteers, and the Girl Scouts are always looking for volunteers. And so they'll take, the grandparents, the aunts and the uncles, the big sisters, the big brothers. They want all of them. And if you've got something to contribute, they want you to do it. I remember many years ago when we were learning about different cultures, I'm lucky enough to live in a lovely, diverse area. And so my troops have always reflected great diversity. So I would get the parents who are willing to come in and teach about their culture in one way or another, and, and to help the kids learn. So, if you've got something to give, that's great. And you don't have to be a parent or have a kid in the Girl Scouts in order to be a Girl Scout volunteer. Independent volunteers in the community can sign up and be part of the program, because trust me, they could use you. And the thing is that there's more girls that want to be Girl Scouts than they have spots for. And that's because they need the volunteers. It's because it's a nonprofit organization, as these all are, but it's a nonprofit because they're not paying staff members to do these jobs. And so they have to have the adults. And so one of the great things is you can get retired people, especially in communities that are very involved, and they will sign up and they will take on these roles, or they'll at least be the support services volunteers to help out. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think part of that is just communicating to the community at large, hey, if you've got these skills, if you want to help, even if you have a scout in the program, great, come and join them. Or even if you don't and you want to impart something of yourself, go and give and volunteer, because they want everyone's experience. They know everyone's got something to give.
We spoke about that, the same thing in the Scouting America side. In my district, we've got the council. I'm in the Flint River Council, and underneath I'm in the Tussahaw district, which is 10 or 12 troops and packs all together, Cub Scout packs, Boy Scout troops, or Scout troops, excuse me. I'm still getting used to it. I'm still getting used to the combined thing. I'm sure everybody feels the same way, or not everybody, but a good portion it's like, stop saying Boy Scouts. It's not Boy Scouts. It's just Scouts.
It's what you grew up with.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to break that vocabulary.
We didn't change Girl Scouts,
Well, I'm going to skip what I was going to say and say this. I'm a little bit jealous now that the girls can get Gold Award and Eagle Scout, because they certainly can and have and do. And there's a young lady in my daughter's troop. I have got a 15-year-old daughter. Let me add that, and she's involved in our scout troop, and she's the senior patrol leader, which is the head youth in charge of her troop. So there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about with that, but one of her friends, Amelia, is going to earn her Gold Award, and she is going to get her Eagle Scout. I'm most certain she's got every idea to do that, is to get the Eagle Scout Award. And I gotta say, I've got a little tinge of jealousy that I can't get both, because they both look so great on college applications, like you said, and job applications. And to have both would just be so great. So I'm a little jealous of that.
And they're different enough to where, the processes are different and everything you have to do is different. That kid's really putting out the effort for this.
Yes.
It's not doubling up here.
It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do one of them. So it's most certainly not easy to do both of them.
Yeah, no, if it was easy to do, that's why everyone would do it, but they don't.
That's true. I wanted to speak to that a little bit as well. What we were talking about a little while ago. They can do the Gold Award, but it's in high school, and that's the only opportunity they have to do it in that. So, and it's kind of like a community service project, right?
Yeah, it's got to be something that benefits the community, and it's heavily policed, I would say. You have to propose your idea to a panel, and you have to do regular check-ins. And at the end of it, you've got to submit everything to the council, and then they are going to be judge and jury on the final product. And they could still turn you down and say it wasn't for naught. It can take some time.
It's a similar process for the Eagle Scout Service Project as well. They have a portion of that as well. I don't have my requirements at the moment to show you, but it's kind of similar to that. There's a little bit less of the knockdown part, I guess. There's less opportunity for it to get said no to. It's all, they have to line it all the way up first, and then they begin. Like, they have to get all the approvals, like you said. They have to, whatever organization that they're doing the project for, they have to mark it off approved. Then they have to mark it off approved with their scout leaders in that troop, and then they have to do it with the council as well, and then go back and then finalize everything, accomplish the project, and make sure it's to that organization who they did it for, to their satisfaction and whatnot. And a little bit less of the kickback, I guess. So that makes it a little easier, I suppose. But a similar.
Yeah, there is a thing too where it has to be the girl's independent idea. It can't be the organization's idea. So I might say, an example might be, I know I've seen Eagle Scout projects at my church. And I know the church told them what they needed. And so that was the basis for the idea. The Girl Scouts won't allow that. So it has to be the girl's idea, girl's independent proposal. And it doesn't have to be for organization. But if she's going to do something for an organization, the idea cannot come from them.
Interesting. How do you? I wonder how you'd even go about navigating that.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, a girl sits there and thinks about it for a year or two while she says, "What am I going to do when I get?" I mean, that's simple enough. I mean, my granddaughters, I'm sure all three of them could figure out various proposals that might or might not fly. But any rate, hey, tell me something. Do the Girl Scouts have any kind of an Indian? We used to call it Indian lore. Now it's like Native American culture or something like that. But do they have a component of Native American lore that is part of the Girl Scouts that you know of?
If we're talking about lore in terms of sort of an integrated history
and costuming and dancing.
No, it's not that. Now there's different facets where you can learn about the culture, but it's not an ingrained part of the programming.
Well, Baden-Powell had a lot of respect for the African people that he knew and fought with and fought against and had on his side in various military situations in Africa. He talked a lot about their fortitude and bravery and skill. And then, of course, here we had people talking about the Indians, how they lived off the land and they knew all those skills. And I was just wondering if that had been integrated.
No, that's not a part of it. Even when we do our camping badges, that's not an integrated thing. So that's another difference as well.
Yeah, it's less now than it used to be in Scouting America programs for sure. Like our den leaders were called Aquila. That's what we called it, and that's from the the Jungle Book. So that kind of thing. But with that, Aquila's a wolf, and then there's plenty of Native American wolf, side by sides that go along with that. We do have. I wanted to ask this. We do have an honor society, kind of like a President's Club for Boy Scouts or for Scouts. That's called the Order of the Arrow, and it's where members of a troop will elect a worthy person who has earned the first class rank at the very least. And who they look at as a representative of their troop, a really good leader for their troop, or somebody that really exemplifies the Scout Oath and Scout Law. And then they have like this separate group that they can meet with. It's called the Order of the Arrow. Is there anything parallel to that for the Girl Scouts?
So not like sort of a group that you get nominated to meet with separately, but they do have opportunities for separate groups. I can't quite remember, but I know in the Greater Atlanta Council, there's a separate group of Girl Scouts that operates almost as an independent troop, but I think it's sort of like a separate club. They're very journalistic minded, so it might be sort of subject specific. And they have their own special name for that group that I can't remember. But we do have awards that you nominate for, but it's individual. And it's like, oh, I've got one on here, as a matter of fact. It's called the Pioneer Pen. And I had to be nominated for it, and the council gave it to me. And you can have troop awards, there are service unit awards, and there are official Girl Scout Council awards. And but it's an individual thing. You're nominated at whatever level, and then the governing body gives it to you. So
Okay. So there's not any extra clubs that multiple girls from different troops would get together.
If they wanted to create one, they could, but not one that they're nominated for.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I was a very minimal member of the Order of the Arrow. I got nominated. I went through the ordeal, is what it's called, which is a big silent service project where you can't talk for a day or two, and you work and you do service projects. Mine was laying sod. It was a lot of sod. A lot of sod.
You know, we've been on for about an hour, and Michelle, I'd kind of like for you to just say a little bit of something about, since you are a bard now, you could talk about our Scottish bard and what you've and how you have. And is Tom around? Tom Bard?
No, he's run off somewhere, but yeah.
But you might just say something about Robert Burns and maybe, I don't know how that all fits in, but we're hoping that as we go along, people from all over the world will sort of listen to us and look at the old ones and come up with this, and watch this one. And so I just thought maybe a little bard talking about the bard.
A little bard talking about the bard. I love that. Yeah. So being a bard myself, a person of many words. So Robert Burns is the national bard of Scotland. So and has not been forgotten. He's still lauded, and his works are just so ingrained in everyday vernacular that people don't even realize what he's imparted to the world. But Scotland has Burns as their bard, but his peer in England is Shakespeare. That's England's national bard. And so I think it tells you something that Burns is on that level. That's his peer.
Well, I think about that. We often talk about his poem, "A man's a man for all that," and he said, "And come what may, we hope that that brothers will always be for man's a man for all that." I wish I could quote it better, but that for man to man, the whole world over, will brothers be for all that. And that world brotherhood of scouting, of girls and boys and men and women, is something that we hope people all over the world will enjoy this broadcast. And for years, they'll tune in and they'll look back and they'll say, "I remember that lady that time talking about the Girl Scouts of America. And I didn't realize that Savannah had a museum. And I'm going to go to Savannah next week and I'm going to go by that museum." And Savannah's a great, beautiful city.
Gorgeous.
And it has a lot of historic preservation stuff there.
Yeah.
Oh, Sherman didn't burn it down like he did Atlanta. But
that's kind of a little bit of a myth.
Did he burn much of Savannah?
Well, no, mostly the Atlanta part. It was really the Confederates that were in charge of burning things so that the Yankees couldn't get to their stockpile.
Yeah, they burned the stuff down at the Central Station, the train station.
So, but Sherman did not burn Savannah. He presented it to President Lincoln as a Christmas present. But and one of his orders that he issued before leaving Atlanta actually was to not cause chaos and mayhem unless they met resistance. So if a town gave them resistance, then yes, it's war. They're going to burn things and they're going to pillage. But if the town did not give them any resistance, then it wasn't going to be a problem. And Savannah didn't give them any resistance. And Sherman had 4 different groups marching from Atlanta through various routes down to Savannah, where they all met again. But that's
Yep.
Savannah was safe.
Yep. Well, any rate, I'm glad to have a historic preservationist on with us, and
Thank you.
a Girl Scout leader, and a friend at the Burns Club, a fellow Burnsian, and Elliott, who's been to the Burns Club and
I
heard
have.
heard the Atlanta Pipe Band playing there, presenting
Yeah.
that night. I don't recall whether you were there that night or
No, I
not.
had to miss that one. I forget
Yes.
one.
But at any rate, so everybody out there in the world, read your Robert Burns, read your Scout laws, read your Scout promises, and support scouting and the young people of the world who really need the guidance that will take them into an adulthood where they are first class scouts and first class citizens. And that's what we want.
That's
Thank
what we
you,
want.
everybody, for tuning in. And thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now, everyone, please enjoy this nice piping from the Burns Club meeting that I did go to. Good night, everybody.
Good night.